Herc, we know where the games of the 2026 World Cup will be played. We know the opening game will be played in Mexico City at Estadio Azteca. That's not much of a surprise. We also learned that the final will not be played in Dallas, as many of us had thought. Instead, New York, New Jersey at MetLife Stadium. What do you make of that decision?
Wow. I always thought it should be LA, New York. Good to see one of those two pull through. Don't know what they gave up in terms of concessions, what they had to do to their stadiums or those facilities to make it happen, but I'm glad it's happening. It should be LA, it should be New York, one of those two, no matter what.
There you have it. So New York, New Jersey will host the 2026 World Cup Final. The opener, though, Herc, will be, as we mentioned, at Estadio Azteca, a good historic site to kick off the World Cup, no?
It's a great site. Estadio Azteca becomes the record holder. It's a third World Cup opening ceremony games for them. It's a historic stadium, a stadium that gave us, Pelé holding a trophy, a stadium that gave us great moments in 1986 with Diego Armando Maradona holding a trophy and everything that tournament entailed. La mano de Dios, the hand of God, that beautiful goal against England where he takes on like 7, 8, 9 players, if you will. It's historic for many reasons. Kind of bummed that that's all they get, though. And very much so that it's the opening games and Estadio Azteca. I know it's historic, but they're going to go Azteca, Akron, Guadalajara, and back to the Azteca. Monterrey, one of the best places in Mexico to play in a beautiful stadium, will not get a game for the Mexican national team.
All right, so you gave us the group phase schedule for Mexico there, starting in Mexico City, one game in Guadalajara, then back, as you mentioned, to the Mexican capital. It's kind of similar for the United States, except it's Los Angeles, Seattle, and then back to LA. What do you think of that for the USMNT?
Well, I'm glad it's in the West Coast for many reasons, right? I know what football, soccer is like in this region, and it's amazing. And LA should have had more than just a group phase. Honestly, I thought it would have been the World Cup final, and I'm a little upset that Stan Kroenke wouldn't bend to the demands of the city, of FIFA to make it
Hmm.
happen. SoFi Stadium's a beautiful stadium. It had to be there. That's where the World Cup final, in my opinion, had to be. The fact that they didn't have the foresight when constructing this stadium, to have the architectural foresight of planning world events, not just regional events, not just an event in LA, but something that would attract the world is inconceivable. But it's a beautiful stadium. I'm glad they'll have 2 games here. And I'm so glad that Seattle's getting this too. If there's one place
Hmm.
that's rich in footballing history, and I've defended Seattle many, many times, it's Seattle. You can go back to the 70s and what they've done, whether it's outdoor men's and indoor, football and women's soccer. They represent true footballing history in this country. So I'm glad that
Hmm.
they will have the U.S. men's national team there. They will showcase them. The Pacific Northwest does football right. I'm happy from that standpoint, but it's the U.S. men's national team, and their mantra has always been growing the game. I would have loved to have seen it spread out a little more, though I understand this regional seeding, if you will, to limit travel for fans.
Yeah. Since you mentioned the Pacific Northwest, we should mention the Canadian representation in this tournament. They're going to open their tournament in Toronto and then play their last 2 games of the group phase in Vancouver. So a nice little home setup in the group phase there for the Canadian men's national team as well.
Yeah, let's hope it's not just more than a participation trophy for the Canadian national team. And I've been big on Canadian soccer for quite some time. The last World Cup, they were in a very difficult group, the most difficult group out of all of them. They had, generational team in Belgium, their best generation in their history. They had 2 semifinalists in Croatia and Morocco, that amazing run that Morocco had. But you would have expected their showing to be a lot better. So I'm hoping it's better for them this go around, though. If we've seen anything in the organizational level, the federal level, to lead us to believe that they will be better when they play in 2026, I'm not so sure. They still have an interim coach in Mario Biello. They have no head coach. Lots of problems there with funding. Lots of problems there with players and what they can actually do in that national team, get out of it. So I'm hoping it's I'm hoping it's much more than just here are your 3 games and you bow out. They've got a young, very good team, and I'm hoping they can do something.
Kirk, we already mentioned the final will be played in New York, New Jersey at MetLife Stadium. Other than the awkwardness of today's announcement, anything else stand out to you?
The awkwardness. I mean, how cringe from top to bottom was everything. Johnny Infantino's there, uh, showing how misogynistic and how sexist and how out of date he is. It's FIFA being FIFA. His
Hmm.
his off-color jokes about Jenny Taft, the presenter. What position would she play? She asked. He put Kevin Hart as a center forward, and then he told Jenny Taft, "You would be cheering us on. You'd be a cheerleader. Like women can't play soccer. Like if the U.S. Women's national team hasn't been historically the best national team in the women's game, to date. It's just very cringe, very appalling. Kevin Hart making jokes about Mexican cuisine, how delicious Mexican cuisine, and how proud we are of it, making off-color jokes about that. I just hope Cat Williams can hear this to let him have it. Everything about this was just very cringe from top to bottom, indicative of what FIFA is today.
Well, look, they got 2+ years to figure out so that maybe when we actually get to the tournament, it's a little bit less cringe. But we know now where the 2026 World Cup will kick off. That will be in Mexico City at Estadio Azteca, and we know where it'll end in New York, New Jersey, MetLife Stadium for the 2026 World Cup Final.